Hello, nerds.
Hello.
Hello, Ghost Hunter, Paint Liquor, and Ben. What's going on? Hi. How are ya? Hello, everybody out in TV land. Lady Commander Gentastic, Queen of all she survives. They built a monument to her name. Long may she reign.
Thank you, Ghost Hunter.
Technically all correct.
Yeah.
Sarcastic grandpa, what's going on? Best kind of grandpa. Nobody needs the dull, matter-of-fact grandpa. We all need sarcastic grandpa in our lives.
Mom, I thank you for the sub. You know what? I could say that my grandpa was probably a little sarcastic. He was such a
all
cool
the good
guy.
ones are.
My grandpa was a cool guy.
All the good ones are.
He was great.
All the good ones are able to just deadpan stare you right in the face and tell you a lie. And have you go run off to your parents, being like, no, but grandpa said, and then be smiling ear to ear as mom and dad come in saying, what were you talking about? He's like, I don't know what that kid's talking about.
Yeah, my grandpa was
mischievous.
one of my favorite people in the whole world.
Sarcastic, mischievous. You've earned it. By the time you're grandpa, you've earned it, I think. I feel like that sounds fair to me. Right? All right. One thing that's bugging me is the ground. This is the land of browns, this guy. Use all the browns.
It's just very foresty. There's a lot of brown in the forest.
Flapjack, what's happening?
What's everyone doing today? Halfway through the week.
Oh my God, it's Wednesday.
It
I have
Wednesday.
to fly out at like 8:30 tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Got to do laundry tonight.
You do? Oh, that means I gotta fold mine.
Huh?
That means I gotta fold mine.
Yep. Yep, I gotta have pants to wear when you go to these things, it turns out.
Vincent Alaco, still weird over here. Yep. And confirm. Dom's Minis, hello.
Would you accept it any other way?
Huh?
Would you accept it any other way than weird? I don't think people would show up.
So if Australia is down under, are we
up over?
Up over? Hello from up over. Good day. We don't say that here. Howdy. I don't say that either. That seems weird.
Yeah. Howdy from up over.
Howdy from up over.
I like this.
Jordan doesn't wear pants. Why does Jordan need to wear pants? We look good from your angle? Okay, good.
Hey, Kerwin, thank you.
Minnie's looking great.
This is the Pan Fawn Sire from Dragon Trapper's Lodge for their most recent Fates Entwined campaign on My Mini Factory. It's an STL that you can get. And the entire campaign was fantastic. So, it's been a fun paint. I'll probably take him with and be painting him at Nova Open. So I will be at Nova with Jordan and Christopher, who are already there.
They're already there.
Already there, set up and enjoying the day.
Pictures.
And I know Cannibalistic Zombie was there with them.
Awkwardish Panda.
Awkwardish Panda. I don't know. Did I see pictures of Awkwardish already?
Pictures of miniatures that she's entering into the Capital Palette.
Oh, okay.
Christopher.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, so people are
really
already there hanging out with the crew. I'll be there tomorrow night.
Miniatures.
I'll be there tomorrow afternoon, but you won't see me around there until tomorrow night probably. And then Friday morning, Saturday, Sunday, I'll be at the stand and around the Capital Palette hanging out, shaking babies, kissing hands.
Don't let Jason touch your baby.
Yeah, probably don't let me touch it.
Roby said, just got my Fluorescence Ninjon set, Vinci V set, and some noosh from my LGS. Awesome. Thank you for supporting your LGS. We love that. And thank you for picking up some Monument Hobbies products there. Awesome. Nick Pye said, if you don't wear pants, you can't wet them at the airport. It was his sweatshirt, not his pants. It was his hoodie. Can't wear your pants at the airport if you're not wearing pants. Jason's saying pants are required as if that isn't a deal breaker. No thanks, I'm good. Claire Street.
Why, what? Jim's confused.
I'm not confused by anything. He peed his pants. We all know the story. That was a story that if you didn't want people to continue to talk about it forever, you should not have told it. Because they're going to bring it up every time.
I'm secure with my storytelling. I'm not worried. I know what the truth was. But I got there by making it fun. Maybe there was a chance Jason peed his pants at the airport. It had me convinced for a second.
Yeah. Like, do I need to see a doctor?
I mean, this whole story arose because of my shock.
Yeah.
that came around with, why are my hands wet?
Yeah, every time you travel from now on, it's going to be brought up. Careful with where you carry your water bottle.
Well, it's just careful to put the top back on.
Flapjack Nickel Sack said, I haven't heard the story, but what I'm hearing is that Jason peed his pants at the airport.
Basically, yes. You can roll with that. You can introduce me as that guy that pees his pants at the airport. It probably gets me a cheaper dinner. I will definitely get the senior discount if everybody tells that story. So that's really my goal here, is to be able to get the senior discount.
A feeble old man.
Push my old man card up a few years. Although, I was thinking about it. 2025 marks the time where I can go live in one of these 55 and up places.
I can't, though.
You can, because you're with me.
Oh, that's allowed?
Yep.
Oh, I don't have to get special permission?
Nope. You don't have to have a note from your doctor.
She's only 53, but she definitely has the body of an 80-year-old woman. Deserving of living in the retirement community.
I'm not going to lie. I looked at the IHOP menu the last time we were there at the 55 and up part.
Like, how many months?
It's only $1 off.
That's not.
Which means we have to eat at IHOP a lot more.
You get through TSA faster without pants? Probably.
Heck yeah. That's what I heard when somebody said something about the airport not wearing pants. I'm like, well, wait a minute. It makes the pat down quicker.
Malev said Wagwanument hobbies, which I don't understand, but I'm sure others do.
What do you say?
Wagwanument hobbies. GWAN Ument hobbies.
Those aren't even real words. Malev, you all right? You having a stroke?
Okay. So
What?
Fake said, I just bought the mega set and had issues with the paint not drying after almost 30 minutes and reactivating, causing the paint smear and muddy up.
That clown was me, by the way, and I own the place. But thanks.
Facebook account basically said it didn't happen and that I should watch this stream to learn how to use your paint. So here I am, not happy so far, not gonna lie. Hi.
Yeah, hi. Always better to start off on a positive foot, right?
Welcome to our stream. Thank you for joining us today.
You'll see me painting this guy with our paints straight out of the bottle. I use a dry palette. We can pop up the palette on the palette paper. So no tricks. This is literally just a synthetic brush. In this case, I'm using dark umber. And I am right now just painting right over the top of the airbrush primer coat. Basically, there's a little bit of overspray from some of the colors that we primed with. In this case, orange brown. But there's no mediums. There's no trickery on any of this at all. If our paint is not drying for 30 minutes, as you say, it is either being applied incorrectly and way too thick, or it's being mixed and diluted to a point with something like Flow Improver that has a drying retarder component to it. Because without our Noosh medium, we have a drying retarder medium called Noosh that will allow you to extend the dry time up to like 15, possibly like 20 minutes for acrylics. But now acrylics will dry way quicker than that. There's no way to get a water-based acrylic to stay open that long without addition of other mediums and such. So if you're having problems with the paint feeling like it's reactivating, then you maybe, is it, like, how are you applying it? Brush, airbrush? Again, painting in thin layers and not having enough of a good, strong substrate to work up from could cause you issues with reactivation. But it sounded to me more when I was discussing it with you that something like this, a conversation with seeing it happen live, is a lot better for, getting a good understanding on liquid acrylics and the function of it, because it sounds more to me, and this is not meant to be an offensive statement at all, please understand. Our first goal is to help people feel better about their painting regardless of what product you're using. We've been doing this stream for over 8 years, coming up on 9 years, with nary a care to whether or not you're using our products or not, but we will help you in any way we can to have the world of miniature painting work better for you. And we're very appreciative of giving the paint a try. But it sounded to me more like a application issue than a product issue, because you've got a big group, and don't have to just listen to me, you can listen to chat, right, of people that use our products and will vouch for us not having issues with overly long cure times or messy blending or things like that. But I would need to know more about how you're applying. Are you trying to put yellow over black? Are you building up your colors in layers? Help me understand a little bit more about your process, and we can get you set up for sure.
Malev said that no one understands, and that he just likes saying Wagwan in a fake Jamaican accent. He said that we actually should be checking on him if he's typing normally. So,
if it comes out normal,
if it sounds normal, that's when we need to be concerned.
Malev, do you smell almonds?
Welcome to the airport. Okay, then. Well, cough, I suppose.
But you see, like, as I'm painting this brown, while it would not be fully cured, it will still be, having some water evaporate out of it. I can go back and paint over this part here without moving the paint at all. Same way as I'm layering all of this yesterday. I don't ever stop to wait for paint to cure unless I've done like a very thin filter with the airbrush. Because airbrushing has, just through its own atomization of paint, it's a lot of tiny dots. And so if I'm just doing a hint of color, I need to let that cure, because if I put paint over the top, it'll move it all. That's just a function of airbrushing. So there are some times where I will let the paint specifically cure before I go back over it. But 99.9% of the time, don't ever have to do anything like that.
And hello, Captain Mannerings, and Quad Tomato, hello. Vector. Game Delay said, if I paint too wet, I can start pulling up other paint layers, especially if I'm painting over an airbrush coat.
Yeah, airbrushing, like I said, things like that. Realize too, when dealing with Pro-Acryl, I've formulated the paints to be lighter weight. I use this term rather than saying thin, because they're not thin in the sense that we think about thin. They're very opaque. They work like you expect a paint to work for coverage, but they are lighter weight, meaning they are less viscous than other hobby paints, and definitely other paints like enamels or lacquers or things in the non-acrylic range, oils, things like that. So because they are lighter and less viscous, you're going to have to make sure that you do not thin them as much as you might do with a heavier paint. And I remember this particular person mentioning, I think that they were coming over from Vallejo and Citadel and things like that, which are heavier paints. Those companies use a heavier weight medium, a more viscous medium to suspend pigment in, so that the pigment doesn't fall out of suspension and unmix itself, basically. The magic of our paint is that it's already ready to use. Like, you'll see I'm not adding anything to it. I'm just taking it right off of the palette and putting it on the model. I don't have to worry about making it flow better to be able to paint with. And so some people will experience issues because you'll go in and you'll treat it like you've treated other paints and add a lot of water, add a lot of thinner, because you've had to struggle with thicker paints getting them to work correctly. And our paints won't react well to that, because then you will be over thinning them. It's not that you can't. You can thin them however you like. If you're doing filters or washes with them, you can thin the crap out of them. But what you'll be left with is a paint that doesn't act the way you expect paint to if you're looking to do what I'm doing now, like base coating, right? Whereas right now I can base coat all day long. I'm getting good coverage, not having to even think about it. I can sit here and talk to you guys, tell bad jokes, and still get a great paint job.
Scrap 595, thank you for that sub. Malev can't smell almonds, or doesn't smell almonds, but he said, I have heard that some people can smell ants, and I think about that from time to time.
Some people can smell ants?
Yeah.
I wonder if ants have a smell.
Ghost Hunter suggests that game delay dry himself off before painting. Good. Teeny tiny victories. Hello.
I mean, I guess ants have a smell because that's how other ants follow ant trails. So could these people that smell ants, could they follow ant trails?
Are they anteater? How am I supposed to dry off when I'm painting in the shower?
Like, is that how that works?
That's what game delay does. Vector said, I have to say, when it was very humid in France this summer, your paints took quite a bit longer than normal to cure, which I like.
I used warm flesh, wait 26 minutes, and then applied flesh wash. Warm flesh muddied up when applied. Your background is that you painted minis for over 20 years and everything was done with a brush. Okay, so warm flesh and waited and then put a flesh wash over the top of warm flesh. How was I mean, you say you applied it with a brush. And was it dry to the touch? Are you was it shaken correctly? The warm flesh covered well?
Are you in a place that's very humid?
To me, my initial reaction to that is that the wash was done super thick, right?
Songer was 76% humidity in Mexico and didn't have any issues with drying time. Awesome.
When applying the wash, if the wash is super duper wet, right? Then I could see you maybe reactivating the paint. But I mean, I can grab a model and we can paint warm flesh on it and put the wash over it. No problem.
Did we talk about primer? Could the primer possibly?
The primer, in that case, if it's a full coat of paint and the paint is adhered pretty well, then it shouldn't be a big issue. The paint would be moving. It sounds like he's experiencing more of a reactivation if he's saying like cloudiness, you know. That means that the wash is mixing with the color beneath it. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of a reactivation thing. The only thing I could think of with primer is if the primer itself had not cured. But the primer being an issue generally means the paint would tear, mm-hmm. right? So when you put something over the top of it, dry paint would come off in sheets or something like that.
Ghost Hunter in Florida. 100% humidity. I've only had issues when I overworked the paint, which was a me.
Yeah, and some of it is application for like your weight of brush stroke when you're applying the wash. You want to be fairly gentle just on the model, especially the more detail a model has. But if he's been painting, he or she has been painting for 20 years, then I don't usually start with that being the issue.
Yeah.
But it's not out of the question. Let's grab a model. Right? Let's just grab something that has, preferably something with some skin, huh? If we're going to be painting flesh tones. Do I have a model that has some primer on it and has some skin, is the question. I have a troll.
Hey, Liquor, see, the thing is that we all know that you live in Arizona where it's a desert, because that's where we are.
I have a troll with white primer. I don't ever paint on white primer, but this will work.
Gentry's Minis said, living in Texas where everything has AC, I have never even considered accounting for humidity when painting. You know, it's so funny because we went to San Diego once and Jason was teaching painting classes. And,
warm flesh or dark warm flesh?
I think it just said warm flesh.
Warm flesh?
Yeah, warm flesh. It was different. The humidity definitely made the painting feel a little different.
Humidity will increase the dry time generally, more so and more recognizably as you thin your paint more,
yeah.
Right? Because evaporation happens slower as there's more water content in the air. That's just science. We're obviously in Arizona. It's super dry here. So just to let you know, I'm painting with a number 6 synthetic brush. The brush has got some moisture on it, but not a lot. You won't see like drops of water on my hand. We're going for coverage here. On a white base coat, this will be a lot easier, even though there's some green here, which will be a little weird, right? But we'll get really good coverage from the paint on the first go-around. I'm assuming since you said you did warm flesh and then a wash that you probably didn't do any coat of paint under the warm flesh, so that's what I'm doing here. This may be brighter, may not look like what your paint looked like, because if you went over black primer or if you painted dark flesh first or something like that, it'll look different, but we'll just talk about it here. Nope. So just so you know, I'm doing fairly thick coats.
Nothing underneath it. Is that what the nope is?
What's that?
They said just nope, and I just want to know if that was in reference to anything underneath the warm flesh.
Did you prime at all? Or did you just put the warm flesh on the plastic? Some people don't like to use a primer, so that would help me understand too. Our paint requires a primer.
GW Gray Sear Primer.
Okay, good. The GW primers can have issues, but you would have noticed it when the warm flesh on before the wash. Because they can, over time, become very waxy as their supposed matte.
So, but then that kind of goes back to my question then. Would that make it seem like it wasn't drying? If it were waxy?
Again, it would tear. It wouldn't. The paint would dry. Our paint will dry regardless of what it's on top of.
Okay.
Unless you pointed it, unless you painted it like on top of an oil paint or something that wasn't going to dry and then it mixed together. But that's why I say you would notice that problem as you were painting. Okay. Because the paint itself would have problems and not feel right.
Okay.
If the primer was good, and even though the GW and the Army Painter painters will, if they're left alone for a while, the matting agent will fall out of suspension because they're all paints the same. The pigments will separate. In a can, the rattle can part is the agitator that will mix it all back up, but the matting agent will never mix back in correctly. And so then you'll spray them and you'll wind up getting more of a satin finish than a matte. It'll say it's matte, but you'll get a satin. And with a satin finish, sometimes it actually has a kind of a waxy, pH unbalanced surface to it. That can cause some problems with paints of all types. Ours, because they're thinner, might experience that quicker. But you would have noticed that at the beginning. You would have seen that the paint kind of beat it up like oil on water, or water and oil, and you wouldn't have been happy with the base coat anyway. If what you were getting was a solid base coat, and then you're just saying it didn't ever seem to dry, I went back and washed it, and it reactivated, then typically that's something more akin to the paint itself not being cured enough to put the wash, and that leads me to like agitating it with the brush as you're washing, hitting it too hard with a lot of wetness. A lot of people will use a tremendous amount of wash on their models because they're trying to do it all in one pass, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to make sure the wetter the model is, the less you pound your brush into crevices and cracks, because you will reactivate the paint. A water-based paint, until it is cured for 24 hours, still has the opportunity when you put water on top of it to liven up again. That's just going to be true of all paints. Ours with a very matte finish, like Warm Flesh has. The more matte it is, the more surface texture a matte paint has, and so it, can, I don't know why I'm painting these stones, but, the matte finish basically has what we call tooth to it, and so it grabs the wash a little differently. And so you got to be careful if you're doing it. But if you said you let it sit for 20 minutes, I mean, we'll do this coat, and we won't even wait for 20 minutes. We'll give it 5 or 10 minutes while it cures, and then we'll put a wash on it. That's good enough, yeah. Is the arm enough? The arm is enough. It's got enough stuff on there that we can see the wash.
Ghost Hunters, Captain Mannering's Vector, Teeny Tiny Victory is all talking about GW primers, making them give up on rattle cans. And then Ghost Hunter said, we can't say we are going back to rattle cans when Monument Hobbies, or can't say we aren't going back to rattle cans when Monument Hobbies is making.
Yeah, we've got our own rattle can primers coming out. Hopefully late next month, October. So anyway, I went fairly thick. Just let me zoom in. Right. To make sure you can see what's going on here. Right. I don't know if you're going to be able to see against that white primer, but I went on fairly thick. I missed a couple spots where there's ridges on the model, but it's pretty good. Right? So we'll set that aside and let it dry. Anytime you're going to use a wash, you really do need to let it dry pretty well, but not excessively. We'll keep doing some painting. If you can, Jen, let me know. It's 2:30 right now. Let me know when it's like 2:40.
Okay.
Give me 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So we can get kind of close. I'll give it about half the time he says he allowed it to dry. All right, so I got a little bit of that on. I'm going to rub a bunch of this brown off as I handle the model, but it was just bumming me out. I'm at the stage of the model where there needs to be color on everything. Otherwise, the eye gets drawn to that overspray and gray that the base was. At least now I'm kind of balanced back out to where I feel like I can get the full picture going. I think I definitely want to put some contrast on the face. We'll go with bright neutral gray to be our pretend white on the fur.
Teeny Tiny Victories. This is from Fates Entwine Dragon Trappers. Is that right?
Dragon Trappers Lodge.
Dragon Trappers Lodge. Fates Entwined.
Yep.
Campaign on My Mini Factory. I think we've determined that you can still get them, but they're STLs.
We did bone as the base for the fur, and now I need to move it more into the white range. And I'm going to start with bright neutral gray. Here I am going to use a little bit more water on my brush, and I'll be taking most of the paint off on my thumb palette so that I don't have a whole lot, so it doesn't kind of bleed together. I can still get small kind of textured strokes going here.
Tom, you're very responsible. Have a good day at work. Thanks for hanging out with us. Panic Bomb, hello.
What's that?
I was just saying hello to Panic Bomb Arcade.
Gives me a good start to brightening it up. A lot of people jump to white right here, and the problem with that is that you're going to get way too much contrast in the hair. You're going to lose kind of the natural feel of it, so I like to do this interim step. Build up a little bit more contrast along the way, but not be... Even though I want it to look white. You wind up with things feeling like they're white without even using white paint if you do it right, so...
What's humping today? The week. Vector hasn't painted in so long. You were on a nice long vacation, but you took your paints on vacation. Just been building minis and terrain and priming Necromunda.
Nothing wrong with that.
Prepping for a big local campaign.
What's the word on dark purple primer? And are the rattle cans going to be enamel based? They are solvent based rattle cans. They are not enamels. Lacquers, but not enamel. Booker, what's going on? It's always a scary name to say. I think you did that on purpose, Booker. My name in German class in high school and junior high was Volker. 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 Nice, honest German name. We all had to take German names in school.
Yeah, we had to take French names.
And so my name was Volker, and that always got people in trouble.
Yeah, I'm sure. They should have removed that as an option in high school.
You can imagine everybody being, well, like Volker over there. And it just didn't quite come out right. We had an amazing German teacher in college. She was Frau Abdo. Frau Abdo. And Frau Abdo was this just button of a little old plump lady that was like probably first or second generation German.
Yeah.
And she would just kind of hoop-de-doop-de-doop, you know, like a cartoon character around the room. And she would giggle in her little tee-hee voice anytime somebody made a mistake like that. Instead, like, you know, we'd be doing words and they'd pronounce a slang instead because they'd do the wrong thing with the umlauts. And she just kind of tee-hee. That's not what that means.
Mo said you look more like a Gunther.
Ich bin ein große Kartoffel. What was your French name?
My French name was Nicole.
Nicole? Nicole.
I wanted it to be Genevieve because that's
Ich bin Klaus.
Jennifer. But
Ich bin Volker.
someone named like Kelly took that. I'm like, that's my name that you just took.
I look like Gunter? Wait a minute.
Paint liquor was Pierre.
That
French.
Volker guy. He gets sent to the principal's office. I swear it's his name.
Well,
it's his name in
Klaus.
German class. I swear. I swear. Jordan left us alone, Dork Depot, yes.
Hey, you know what? Jason's leaving too.
I leave tomorrow.
So.
Je m'appelle Guillaume.
We're all unattended now.
You've had issues with rattle primer. GW, the white was grainy and the gray was kind of satin and caused the paint to almost beat up. That's a problem with spray paints in general. Don't have a very good shelf life because of the fact that it's very difficult to get them to remix to their original properties in the can. Unlike our water-based acrylic world that we're so used to in painting, where you can shake it up, or any kind of liquid paint, you know, whether it's enamels or lacquers or whatever, if you can shake it back up and see the pigment constituted in it, you're probably good. The problem is that a lot of those are either valve over bag, so the rattle in there is not in a container that allows the paint to actually move the way you want it to. It's constricted. So any of the heavier particulates that fall out of suspension to the bottom, like turn to urethane, right? There are other we won't name them here, but other competitors of ours have spray cans that you can walk and you can see, like Jen and I suffered from it all the time when we were selling them, that the yellow polyurethane would accumulate in the bottom of the can and would come out the cracks of the can. So if a can of spray paint sat for too long, you would see yellow foam. It looked like expansion foam, like spray foam, popping out of the top or on the sides. And if that's the case, then the paint is by and large bad, because there's components that have now separated out, have turned into solids or changed form chemically, and will never be back in the paint. So now the paint isn't what it was supposed to be. It means that it won't adhere as well. It'll have a waxy finish to it, which causes paint to react to it funny, causes odd cure times. So, you know, most of that is that, you know, buy the paint, use the paint, right? Spray paint is one of those products that's meant to be used and not put back. It's meant to buy, use, toss. So paint your army, you know, use it over the course of a week or two or a month, and then dispose of it, you know, and buy another can. Don't buy like 4 cans of primer if you don't intend to use 4 cans of primer right now, right? And that's coming from us, and we're going to be selling rattle can primer. Buy the primer as you need it, right? As you know you're going to use it. Even if that means like prime the models and put them in a nice dry place where they're not going to get dusty, that's fine. Prime them months before you're going to paint them. You're too lazy to clean your airbrush sometimes. I hear you, man. I hear you. Having a beat up airbrush, like a Masters, or, wait for one of the sales, and get just a workhorse, beat 'em up, 0.5 needle brush for priming that you can clean, and you've spent, I don't know, I don't want to judge other people's budget, but if you spend like $50 on a Masters single brush, off of Amazon or eBay, and beat the crap out of it, and you get a year's worth of priming out of it, and you just say in your head, every year I'm going to spend $49.95 on another airbrush that I can destroy with airbrush priming. That's worked for some people. Some people were like, that's okay, got it. All right, so this is 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Dry the touch. I'm comfortable with that. No shininess. It's all matte. Right. So we'll get some flesh wash, did we say?
Flesh wash.
Flesh wash. So flesh wash. Did you thin the flesh wash at all? Paint Liquor says, why are you calling me out, Fuse? I'm not calling you out. We used a Patriot 105 for a beater for a long time. They've gone up in price, so I don't know that I would. That's playing with a bigger budget.
$50 for Masters? Why splurge on their Cadillac version?
50, but fake. So no thinning. Just okay, cool. I am going to put it in, because I'm using palette paper. The wet wash won't stay on my palette paper very well, so I am going to put it in a mixing cup, but nothing in the mixing cup. No magic, no tricks.
Source said if I wasn't using my Harder and Steenbeck airbrush for priming, I wouldn't be using my Harder and Steenbeck airbrush.
That is, use any brush, right? I use the same number 6, just because we're with primer or with washes. I typically want to have them covered. Now the flesh wash is pretty brutally pigmented, so I am going to get a little bit of water on the brush, but this will just make it a tad thinner. I always suggest thinning our washes a bit, just because they are so pigmented. Now I'm just going to keep it loaded. I'm going to assume you just kept it loaded. I would usually clean it off on my thumb palette and use less material on the model, but let's just load it up, right? Notice I'll just kind of hit it against the model as I go.
Said all I did was dab it on the model.
Yeah, just dab it on the model. Don't use big, heavy brush strokes. This is the way to use any wash, because just let the wash do its job, run into those surfaces, right? And then come back and, dab it to get rid of heavy spots and things like that on it. But yeah, I'm just overloading it. I would never in my actual painting use this much wash all at once. You see how much it's dripping down onto the rest of the model? This is way more liquid, so I'm just trying to push the limits here to show you that you shouldn't have problems. Now, this area down here wasn't painted right now, but I don't want that big droplet to get all over my hand, so I'm just gonna hit it like that.
Dab, dab, dab. Make that model fab. Love it.
Was that Malev?
No, that was Captain Mannerings.
Oh, that sounded like another Malevism.
Like it could have been Malev.
Sounded like a Malevism, didn't it? I'm really thick there. I hate that, but I'm gonna let it ride. I'm not doing this with my own eyes. I'm doing this for sampling here, right, just to test it out. And this was over GW Rattle Can White, and this model has been primed. Like, I bought this from a local dude to have a troll army. It's been primed for a long time, so this is as definite no tricks as I can get. You'll see that the wash itself doesn't stick much to the white primer, because the white primer's been on this model for so long. So this is what I would call a very waxy primer. Not because the primer was applied incorrectly, but because it's been sitting in dusty area for so long. I have no idea when I got this model what kind of garage it had been sitting in. So the wash will pill up on the primer, just so you can see. Right? But you see it's not doing that on the surface of our paint. I put a lot here, so I probably would want to come back and...
Captain Mannering said, I rarely wash. I should probably go shower. Talk to Mo. Mo is endorsing the Monument Flesh Wash.
Oh, there you go. There you go. That didn't cloud up or move or tear or anything. I kind of waited a little long before getting that, so I can take the brush and kind of stitch that area together so that I don't have that Tide stain that happened right there at the top. But, yeah.
Clarkatron said, if it's sitting in a sealed bin, will this be an issue for old primer or just because it was sitting around?
These were just in a, like, literally in a box. I mean, when I got them from the guy, they were in Ziploc bags banging around with one another. It was just an old Army. So the thing with primed models, especially matte primers, is that if you just leave them out on a shelf, the dust that collects on them is really hard to get off. It almost, sometimes you'll probably, if you're in a more humid area, you'll pick up the model, it'll feel tacky.
Yeah.
Right? Because the dust almost turns into like a sticky tack on it. And there's really no good way to get that off, because if you wipe it with a toothbrush or a fingernail brush or something, it just kind of... So I typically will dust them with primer again, but be careful, because then you can get the hair or the texture from the dust. So the better thing is to try to use like canned air or something to spray them off. Use your compressor with one of those air nozzles on it and spray it off so that you don't get a problem. So that's looking pretty good. That did the job. No tearing, no moving of the paint. This is the way I would expect all of this to work, right? This is not... Didn't mix. You don't see the warm flesh running into the ruddy brownish red of the flesh wash anywhere. It just all is the color it's supposed to be. I missed a spot right there. And on his thumb, it looks... Oh, no, that's the guy's hand. So yeah, I mean, that's how I would expect it to work. Now, that process of me putting it on is, I've been painting for over 45 years, so just kind of how I do washes. I like to let them dollop on there, and we've built our washes to do that, so they leave less tide staining than you would get from like a GW wash. You see there's less of the darkness. There's a little pit where there's a dimple in the model on the top of the knuckle that I would have cleaned up if I were really painting this. But it lets it all run like it should. And that was literally just a tad bit of water in it. I think that worked really well. But yeah, if you follow those steps, you won't have any issues other than, maybe I'll come in after my paint sitting for a long time. I'll forget to shake it and just put it out on the palette, and I'll need to go back and shake it again. But, like I said, not trying to be like poo-pooing the issue that you're seeing. We want to get you painting right. But we've formulated Pro Acryl to literally just work. But that being said, you have to get used to how it feels for you and how it's different from other paints you've used, because we've made a paint that is built like you would build a fine art paint, not a hobby paint. And so it is, like I said, it's less viscous starting out, so it flows more like water, right? It's thinner feeling on the brush. So you don't need to add any thinner to it. You can paint with it just like we did. But even with that, I painted that warm flesh on really thick with a number 6 brush, just kind of dolloped it on, which is very uncomfortable for me. It's not how I paint. But it turned out pretty good. I might start painting that way. that highlight on the top of the arm looks pretty good. Our washes are good.
Good afternoon, Tech Elf.
But yeah, it's, I use, we use washes and filters and, all sorts of crazy stuff from time to time. But it, just depending on what and how you're painting, I tend to use washes earlier on the model. So I'll do like a base coat and a highlight, and then I'll use the wash, and then I'll go back and layer up over the top of the wash so that the wash is just giving me some nuance to shadow and maybe a little bit of filtered color and something along the way. I don't typically use washes heavy over the top. So while I may not paint that way, the paints are built to take that though. Trying to think, what else do we have here that was maybe done like that? Too many models.
Bear, hello. How goes the summer? It's hot. Pretty standard.
Bear, what's going on? I never remember if it's Snape or Snipe.
I know.
I mean, it's Arizona, so asking how the summer is always a iffy deal, because it's like 110.
Yeah, that's what I just said. I said it's hot.
But we're getting to where you can feel like it might start cooling. The nights have been better.
Nice.
Mornings and nights are not feeling like it's the end of the world. There for a while, you wake up and it's 104 or over all the time. Like, I don't think it dips below 100 for a month here at night, because I'll go out at night, you'll take the dog out, and it's still like sweaty, balls sweat.
It does get below 100, but it's in the 90s. And now it's in the 80s. Right now, like this morning when I took the dog out, it was like 85. It was nice.
Yeah.
And when we were standing in that building today in the back, underneath the cupboard, like between the warehouse store and the thing, it felt perfect.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel hot at all.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that part where it's
With
no
a capital
longer
7.
it's no longer 110
Memory gardens, it's
every
not that
day.
bad. We adapt, we survive, we have AC. It's, you know what? It's millions of people live here. So
Clarkatron,
totally
50
fine.
Fahrenheit. What? Where the hell are you? Alaska?
Canada. Now that we said it, it will jump back to 110. We don't talk about cooling, it will jinx it. I know. I was thinking about that this morning. I'm like, this is the time of year
You are correct.
that tricks us.
You are correct.
Yes, because we get that, like, ooh, it just starts to dip, and then it gets a little bit warm again, and then it just kind of stays here and just, like, sits for a while.
The wash
78
will,
North
because I put
Coast
the wash
sounds
on so heavy, the wash will take quite a while to dry. Especially in the pooled up areas, like in the contrasty parts, the wash will take a long time to dry. So if you are painting and slopping wash on like that, you can get really good results. I don't say not to do it. Just realize that you do need to let that model alone. If you try to paint over the top of that, the wash will reactivate a lot easier than the other colors. Once it's dry, you won't have a problem. 78 in North Dakota. Where is it? 50. I swear.
Canada.
He's like in Greenland.
It's Canada.
Or somewhere way up in Canada where only 7 people live.
Canada. You hear me saying Canada?
Did I say that?
I've been saying it since the beginning. Since you said, where's that? Are you in Alaska? And I said, no, Canada.
Does the void talk back? I literally am looking over at all the models, and I've got too many models, and I could pull any of them, but none of them are ever the one I want. I'm like, can I trade these painted models for some other ones?
Gentry's Mini said, in Texas, I expect it will stay hot until Halloween, and then it's 50-50 if a cold front comes in around that time. About the same as
October,
Arizona.
November.
Yeah.
Yeah, October, November.
Mo, enjoy your errand running. We'll see you next week, hopefully, after Labor Day.
Hope things are going better for you, Mo.
Yeah.
No, you're having a tough start to your week, so hope it's been looking up.
78 in Buffalo, New York, but also 85% humidity, so it's like a light sauna. I'm going to Flagstaff next weekend, and I think it's going to be in the 70s. Excited.
So now,
Warm in Maple Leaf Land. Is that Toronto?
I think I want to darken the stump. I'm sitting here thinking, do I want to darken the wood on him as his armor or body parts, or do I want to darken the stump? And I think the stump is the right answer. I like the wood on him being kind of the more lively wood. Because I don't want the wood on him to interfere with what I'm trying to do with the beard. I think the stump.
After Canada Day, Phoenix turns into New Canada. That is true.
And now that we just did washes, I'm going to use brown wash.
Ghost Center lives in Florida. They don't participate in winter.
They don't participate in what you don't,
They participate
actually.
in snowbird season, just like we do. Is there going to be moss added?
I thought we turned into New Canada.
No,
Oh, yeah, that's what you said.
yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Is there
Gentry's, no. I give it a mossy look just by using the green base. So I've used the dark camo green, and we might have to go back after I do this brown wash because I might start losing a little bit of the green. But that was the idea when I did the wood initially. This is all done with just filters and dry brushing right now to get the base done, and now we'll have to start detailing it. But it gives me a good color workup, so I get that kind of mossy forest wood type coloring.
Did we get any?
Did we what?
Any last questions or response or anything from?
I don't see, I was looking and I didn't see anything. So I hope that helped with the flesh,
yeah,
the warm
let us
flesh
know,
and the
please, if you're still here.
And the wash.
If it helped you, anyway, see the process that Jason.
Is it A-okay for my end? Like I said, the wash is still wet where it pooled up because I really slopped it on there. But you can thin the wash as much as you want. I'm going to go full bore with the brown. The brown isn't quite as pigmented as the flesh wash.
You're still here. Okay, so do you have Any additional questions? Anything else that you would like to see?
Yeah, we want to make sure you're happy.
This is the best place for it just because you can get that live demo and questions answered on the spot. A little easier than back and forth through like a message or something.
Now I'm going to paint with the wash. I'm not going to use the same dabby that you just saw me do on that. I'm going to have to paint with it because I've got these areas that I can't have it like Tide stain. I need it to blend. So I'm going to have to just continue to use my brush to move the edges of the wash around the model until it feathers out to next to nothing, because then I won't get that hard edge, right? The big problem with washes is if you leave an open edge anywhere, that open edge turns into a line where pigment builds up, and then you wind up with staining. So something like that, now I've blended it out, so now I won't have any of that staining. Even along this edge, I won't get any of that staining. My goal here is just to use this to darken the wood, so it's a filter. I don't care so much about the fact that the wash provides me with a shade right now. It's going to in the roots where it builds up here, and that's fine. Help blend it in with the mistakes I got, like brown on it when I was doing the ground or something like that. That's fine. But what I'm really wanting it to do is just add that brown color over the top of everything else in a very translucent manner. So washes don't always have to be used as shades. You can use them to kind of be a, I don't want to say a glaze, but it is really. Glazes and washes are both styles of filtering. And that's what we're doing here. And as my brush gets less and less material on it, I can use it to hit the areas where I don't want them to darken up as much, but I do want to have consistency of coloration. So if that brown hits a part of the model, I want it to hit all of them. We can see how that's doing a good job of darkening that up versus like this, right? The washes are great multifunction tools. Just know how to use them for the situation you're planning on. So like I said, more of a painterly brushstroke here, if you will. Less of the blotting onto the model. I just want to make sure I don't build any up in big blotches. So I got to go back and kind of make sure that, like here, I don't want that to kind of sit in those spots. So just treat it like any paint and move it around as you need. If you got, here's a good spot where it could build up and cause a big droplet to form. So I'll just kind of lightly blend that out. Treat it just like a regular paint. I just want to keep using this until I feel like I've gotten this wood tone further away from the color of the wood on his body. So I can layer the washes as well. Don't feel like you do one layer and have to be done. It doesn't have to be right the first time. I can continue to come back over and layer and get more of a filter built up, more brown. I just have to let it dry more, right? Just like when glazing, you don't want to overwork an area. You can tell it's still wet because it's shiny. So don't put more paint on there, because all you're going to do is move the bottom layer of paint around. And that can be good if you're trying to spread it further, or it can be bad if you're wanting to keep it there and just darken it up or change its color or whatever else.
Darth Mullen said, I thought something was missing. It was those brown tones that you're applying right now. Gives it back the barky feel. Was that your plan all along, or did you just make it up as you went?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Darth Mullen thought something was missing from the model. It turns out it was the brown that you're adding right now to give it the barky feel. And he said, was that your plan all along, or did you just make it up as you went?
You know how I paint. I'm making it up as I go. I I knew initially that I didn't want the wood on the stump and the wood on his body to be exactly the same, but I wanted them to feel like they're part of the same, ecosystem, if you will. So I knew I was going to try to push it apart. I didn't know which was going to be darker. I could have easily just put this brown on him and allowed the stump to stay as the lighter version. But in my mind, the stump would be darker because it's already been chopped down. He's still alive, so he'd have more of a greenish tone to the wood, maybe. I don't know. I'm making it up as I go.
Lost and Found said, out of curiosity, why wash over noosh for this application?
Why wash over what?
Noosh.
Just because I can't get in to remove it all. I'm not looking to use this as a shade. I'm using it as a complete filter.
I understand that. I was saying, I was reading it as, why are you putting the wash over noosh? But it's, why would you choose wash?
I think it's, why would you choose it? Yeah. That's how I heard it. Because I haven't used noosh on this. Noosh could work, right? And could be probably a little bit more abrupt, quicker. But in this case, since we were just doing a wash, I figured I'd stick to washes and show you. They're both filters. Noosh is a subtractive weathering tool, though. So if I wanted to put it in here and then rub this and like an oil wash, get rid of a lot of the color on the high spots, then noosh would have been the choice. But because that's not really... I mean, it would work down along the roots for sure. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was not to create dark spots. It was to put a brown filter over the whole model. And this is a lot easier than working with noosh because this will dry quicker and let me layer faster than noosh will. You got to remember, the dry time on noosh is pretty long. And so if I want to continue working quick, this is the thing. Because I'm just looking to change this color a little bit. And I want to be able to build it up. Because like this first pass probably not going to be dark enough. I'm not really thinning the wash at all. But it's still not going to darken that brown up enough in one pass. So I'll need to do it again pretty quick. I'm not patient. Although I have to remember at this case that I can still also brighten up the wood on him. So one thing you got to be careful of when doing this is not to over darken particular parts of the model, right? If I make this stump so dark that I lose all the contrast and volume that we've gotten out of it by the dry brushing and all the work we've already done, then I have to go back and spend a lot more time on the stump. So I'm kind of trying to hit a happy medium here in my head with dark enough that I feel like I can go and then move the wood on his legs brighter with a highlight. And it's getting there. That's pretty good. Noticing there was a piece of a rock that I had missed right here. Maybe I didn't miss it. Maybe it just was too thin right there. I guess I'll darken up the inside of the stump wood here too, even though I feel like maybe that would be brighter.
There's discussion of the difference between glazes and washes, I think.
Glazes and washes?
Glazing is an overall filter. Washing is letting the filter pool in the recesses.
Typically, but you can see I'm using a wash as a glaze, right? Glazing typically is a process, not a product. A wash is a product. Does that make sense?
It started with the source saying glazes and washes are just styles of filtering. That's something I've been telling my friends.
Yeah, the way that I describe it is that glazing is a process, washes are a product. Washes can be used to glaze, right? So, it goes back to that whole not all glazes are washes, right? But all washes can be glazes. Does that make sense?
Yes, so glazing is a technique.
Yeah.
Filter is a result.
Process versus product. Wash is just a product. It's some pre-mixed paint that does a particular glazing feat very easily.
A. Kerwin said, I've been painting for a long time, and glazes are still a new, mysterious experience for me.
You know, it's funny because most people have been using glazes to some extent if you've been thinning your paint at all, right? So if you thin your paint before you go and layer it on, you've been technically experimenting in that world of glazes. We typically, as miniature painters, think of glazes as being more impactful, like, you know, much thinner, much more subdued application of color when glazing, you know, for highlights or for shadows. You're not trying to make it look like you slopped a bunch of paint on. You're trying to just, you know, push a slight color onto the model.
Teeny Tiny Victory said, how does the drying time of the transparents compare with the washes? We got our set not long before we had to pack up and move, so I haven't had a chance to play with them.
The transparents are more like our normal paints right out of the bottle, so they're pretty much exact, right? So any of our normal line of paints all have a particular dry time. The washes are able to dry just as quick, but typically when we apply a wash, it's thicker, like you saw me do on the troll, right? And so the troll still has, after however long it's been, you know, it still has some areas that were really deep ridges filled with lots of paint that are still shiny and wet. So those will take a lot longer to dry. But the stuff out here is already dry. Like all the thin areas, this is all dry. And I could paint over the top of this now, right? So I could come back over this wash now and let's say because I used warm flesh, I would come back over this now with more warm flesh, right? And highlight it. If this were the way that I were painting, I would take this model. Where's some paint here? I'm even running out. My palette is so dirty that I can't use the palette, and my palette paper is so dirty I can't use the palette paper anymore.
Vector, have a good night.
Right, so now if I grab like a number 4 or number 3, now I'll do some glazing to tie this whole story together, right? So glazing allows me now to have more water on my brush. All my thinning is done with the water on my brush. And then I take most of the paint off over here, and you'll see I can still see the gray on my thumb through the warm flesh. And now I would come over here and I would be able to glaze, even with this wet paint, over the top of what I have done as a washed model. So using a filter over a filter to achieve, you know, and gain my highlights back on some of these areas, right? Very strange looking troll when I get done, but, you know, we would be able to do this because the wash is going to filter the whole model in the way that we did it so thick. Now I can come back over and kind of stitch that together.
Avian, hello. How quiet is the office? I mean, it's not that much different.
It's quiet over on this side.
Yeah, that's true because it's just you and Gabe right now. Well, today it was just you and Gabe. Tomorrow, Friday.
Because everybody that's gone is on this side of the office, so. Right. So I can use that to glaze some highlights back in. That whole model's so bright. Right. And glaze in and around the shadows.
Game Delay said, I always thought of the name Teeny Tiny Victories as being something positive about celebrating little wins. But now I realize it's probably bragging about total dominance in mini war games. But then Teeny Tiny Victory said, I've never actually played any of them. It's much the former, and I guess an optimistic play on words regarding the latter.
That's awesome. It.
And then Game Delay said, we get together, Teeny Tiny, play one war game, make sure you win, and then you retire undefeated. It's a plan.
That's Jen's whole scam.
I'm undefeated in every game I've played.
Jen is literally undefeated in every game she's played. She's only played every game one time.
I've only played 3 games.
And she's always won. So she has taken that to heart. Right, so this is just taking that thin paint, making sure that I don't have so much material on the brush. That's why I took so much of the paint and seemed like I wasted it on my thumb palette, so that every brush stroke gives me very deliberate color. It doesn't leave a big droplet that I got to push around, right? And then make sure that your brush stroke always takes the color to the spot where you want the highlight to be, right? And there, I mean, that's just a very fast way that, I don't know if you paint troll skin with warm flesh, but That's a very fast way to do a model. Paint the base coat color, wash it with a dark wash, and then come highlight it with the same color you base coated with, and you can get a really good start to a bunch of your models, especially for flesh. It works very good for flesh and even for armor with metallics.
Jeep Nate is at you. It's funny because on the Twitch chat, the eyes are correct. On the restream, it's two of the same.
I don't understand that.
So right here.
Yeah, I never have understood that. They must have some ID code.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always done that.
Game
Sometimes
relate-
some people will get both.
Yeah.
And some people it'll show one. You always got the same one.
I always got the same one.
Yeah.
And before we were on two different platforms. Ghost Hunter, or not Ghost Hunter, Game Delay. What do you see from Eep Jeep Nate just now? Do you see the eyes?
Ghost Hunter, do you even filter, bro? Like filters on my filters. Filters over the top of filters.
He said, Yo dog, I heard you like filters, so I put a filter on your filter over another filter. You're on Twitch source and it shows two bright eyes.
A wash is a filter, yes, it is.
But see, my Twitch, I see one of each. But on my restream,
when you think of these things less in terms of the product and more in terms of the function, and you start thinking of things as a filter, you can say, I want a heavy filter, right? And so you could use Noosh, and you could get a very heavy filter on there and wipe it off and do that, and you can get a really cool effect, gritty, grimy, weathering look. Or you want a very light filter like we did on this guy with the stump, you know, and so maybe you thin the wash. It isn't about it being a wash. Some people will look over and say, all I have is this black wash. I can't use that. Sure you can. You can thin it down and it becomes almost a gray filter that doesn't have to be that big, you know, gnome oil, heavy, you know, kind of darkness on the model. Thin it out, treat it like a paint, but understand you're always going to have a filter because it's translucent from the get-go. You can't make it more opaque. And then you start thinking in terms of, well, every paint can be a filter, right? We use our opaque paints to filter all the time. You can use glazed wash medium with it. You can just use water like I do a lot of times. But you'll find for the person that was out there that said, glazes are still a mystery to me. A lot of times you're already doing it because you're already filtering. You may just be in a heavier filter world to get your blends, right? Because one of the best ways to blend when painting miniatures is to filter. You're doing that layered blending. You're putting down a color and then you're putting another color over the top of it, but you're filtering along that edge where the two colors meet so that they kind of blend together. Technically, that's glazing, you know?
So, yes, I should have realized that the emotes and stuff don't show on YouTube.
Two right eyes. Oh, that's left eyes. You put a coffee filter, yes. Yes, coffee filter always before you put, wait. Paint liquor, you nearly got me. Eep Jeep says, Jen, did you put any extra love in your order this week?
Well...
All of it?
Yes.
All of it?
I'm doing that right now. I'm putting it in there.
She can broadcast it. All right. All right.
We have a fantastic fulfillment team that packs every box with lots of.
So I need a highlight color on the wood, and I think that warm flesh might be the answer.
Thanks for reminding me I need coffee filters. A source is
warm
curious
flesh?
about
maybe
using
dark warm
Noosh
flesh?
for some recessed shading or black lining.
What's that? Noosh for some recessed shading and black lining. I mean, it definitely will work, right? Like very quickly we showed off Noosh as a way to do, a gritty, weathered wash on these Battletech minis. So I painted these Battletech minis where's the other one? There was one around here that was, this guy. So these guys were just painted up with, I think, maybe like dark blue and then green and then bright yellow green, right? Just to give a preliminary highlight because I can't leave well enough alone, right? So I got a little bit of contrast on them from the get-go, and then I put black brown noosh on it, or warm brown. This was warm brown. So warm brown, I think. Maybe it was black brown. I don't remember. It was a brown. Right, mixed brown in with a noosh, glopped it on the entire model, like it looked like a mud pile, right? And then wiped it off with a makeup sponge, and now you get a really good weathered, and it panel lines it, technically, because that's what noosh does, is when you wipe it off, it forces that filter into the recesses. But you notice it also filtered a color over the top. These models looked exactly the same when I started, but that brown toned down the bright yellow green and gave me this. So now I get that cool kind of military weathered green. It's a little bit more, fake military green, but that was super quick. You could paint an entire battalion of mechs like that, noosh them in 15 minutes, and have models that were ready like this. I went back and dry brushed pale yellow over the top just to get it some extra lining on real quick. But you could come back in and paint, the windshield glass and, I don't know, guns or something, and put some terrain on there, and you'd be done. Right, so noosh works great for that specifically. That was the whole thing that we did on the model that doesn't seem to be over here.
Ghost Hunter, Shelby doesn't pack boxes.
Holy
well,
crap.
That's not true. Shelby is starting to pack boxes for our stores. She is moving over to work with Philip in our wholesale department.
No wonder I'm staring at my cabinet like it's missing a bunch of stuff. Because it
They're
is.
over
Like
here.
100 models over there. Chris has been taking pictures of. This is the model that we did for the noosh video, showing you how to. And same thing here. This was painted in the same way I paint all of my Death Guard.
Collateral damage, we will get to your question in just a minute, as soon as Jason's finished talking about this.
So it was pretty much like this for that bruised white that I do. And then the noosh was black brown, and then going back with the burnt orange and the yellow ochre over the top to do the rust streaks, So noosh is super flexible because it turns acrylics into a longer open time, not quite as long as oils, but that is the goal, so that you can play around with it. It's a little more satiny, so you'll see the model's a little more shiny than normal because it isn't a super matte medium. But yeah, I noosh the whole thing. And then you just wipe it off, or you put a spot of noosh on that rivet, and then you wipe it down, and it streaks, but it takes it off the top and leaves that filter. That's what all of this is. If you watch the Artist Opus video where they used our noosh and fell in love with it, he was using his finger. He was putting noosh on and then just wiping it off with his finger and getting great results. So,
Tech Elf said, sitting at work and my students are asking me, WTH, I'm listening to, LOL. Get back to work, everyone.
Yeah, that's the only thing you have to do is say, mind your own business. Get back to work. Teacher does what they want.
Strello said Eons of Battle just had a really cool video out on Noosh a few days ago. Very
nice. I need to go watch it.
Thin Noosh first
Yep.
to have it filter lines.
Yeah, I showed in the video thinning it and using it for the streaking. It was a lot thicker for the overall filter of the black brown that turned it from this to being very dark and giving it that weathered look. It gave it a lot of shadow and density and volume, and then thinning it for the light work. Because when you thin it, you will reduce the dry time when you thin it with water, right? So noosh, paint, water. The more water you add, the quicker it will dry. But it'll still give you the ability to do like streaking with it, but those streaks will dry quicker, which can be very good as you do things that are very delicate, like the streak, so that you don't come back later and move that streak around, right? So I tend to thin as I go to higher level details like chipping and streaks and things like that. And use the very long open time stuff for the big heavy filters where I don't thin it much, because I want to be able to work on the model a lot to make sure that I get the highlight, I remove it where I want, and leave it in the shadows and move it around the way I want to. It's a lot of fun to play with. Once you get it and start playing with it, you'll fall in love, because it just, use a throwaway model first and play with it is what most people do. And they just are like, oh my God, all the things we can do with it is crazy.
All right, Collateral Damage said, do you notice any difference when priming minis with rattle cans versus airbrush?
Sure, tons. Number one, the amount of paint you use. Use a tremendous amount of paint with a rattle can that you won't use with an airbrush. the airbrush is going to put the paint where it's supposed to go, as opposed to the rattle can gets everything painted. There's probably more paint on the piece of cardboard or wood that you had the model on than there is on the model. So rattle cans are fairly inefficient in that sense, but they are very efficient for time. That's the trade. The airbrush is going to take you longer to get a good priming coat, but it's going to be more efficient with the paint, and it's probably going to give you better detailing if you take that time. Not saying that you can't just blast it on with an airbrush too and save time, but you'll see the same results, right? And then the rattle can is built for, in my opinion, it's built for that army painting. Get it done, do a whole squad front, turn it around, back, bottom, top, done. Because it does put out such a higher volume of paint immediately. And so the rattle cans, because they're made with heavier solvents, they're not water-based generally, those are made to do like complete coverage. So you can get away with doing it in one pass. We all know you're not going to get it in one pass. You're going to turn it and find the areas you missed and bust the model off of the wood and then have to do it upside down to catch the shadow spots and things like that. But, that's the real difference. Is there a trade-off? I mean, the heavier solvent rattle cans are going to be tougher long-term than any airbrush primer in general. Thicker airbrush primers that have heavier polymers in them can still be fairly strong. Ours is fairly lightweight. It's not intended to be super strong until you get it locked in with the next paints. But you can get water-based primers that are stronger than ours, but they're never going to be as strong as a solvent. It's odd for me to say solvent because water is the solvent in these other paints, but we talk about water-based paints and solvent-based paints like lacquers and enamels. So that's what I'm using. But the heavier solvent-based paints will generally be a lot stronger as a prime layer. So I always tell people, if you're planning on priming now and then playing with the models and then painting them later, rattle cans are going to be better for you there. They might get dirtier and stickier and you have to clean them after a while, but they will be tougher and longer lasting for if you're going to leave the model in the prime state longer. Right. The biggest thing with rattle can is make sure you get a matte one. If your rattle can primer comes out satin, it's basically just like paint. So doesn't really do a whole lot of good.
You're ready. You will not be in the position of being in the middle of priming a whole bunch of models and running out of primer in the middle because you have a spare bottle.
Expressionless emoji.
As I would expect from you.
Sounds like your Wada one is about to become your priming brush, and you'll pick up a second pistol grip. Nice.
Pistol grip is working, feeling pretty good for you, Jade. Talk about that. It's more natural.
Pistol grip? Mm-hmm. Yeah. More ergonomic.
Yeah.
I always say it's a movement that you do every day. So it's much easier for you to fine-tune this action than it is this that you don't ever do.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, what do you scratch and paint on a wall? I don't know that anybody does that.
And that's not even because it's really more this, not this.
What was I doing? I was thinking of, is it Warm Flesh? I think Warm Flesh is the right highlight here, actually. Either that or, no, I think Olive Flesh is a little too, not yellow enough. I don't know. I'm going to go with Warm Flesh. Khaki could work too, though. Ooh, I think khaki is the answer. What do you think? Khaki. Let's go with khaki. A little less yellow.
Warm Flesh looked great, and then you put khaki.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like with all these things. There's always like 6 choices that would look good. It's what do you like the best? Ghost Hunter. Merca. There's a pistol grip airbrush behind every blade of grass.
Tomato said, I just had a thought. A painting version of the Monty Python Knights of the Round Table, but instead of coconuts, the squires are shaking rattle cans to simulate the horses.
Seems legit. Now you might ask why, if we dry brushed the wood the first time around, why would we not continue to use the dry brush as a tool for highlighting as opposed to going through and now doing all of this brush work? And the reason is that the dry brush works great early on, not so great late in the game because of the texture that it applies. I don't want that heavy dry brush texture for this wood grain. I want to be able to get nice controlled highlights on these edges, but the dry brush kind of, I don't want to call it sloppy as if that's a bad thing, but the sloppier edge that the dry brush gave us makes the whole piece a little bit more natural. In the sense that it's a little more out of focus. Khaki was definitely the right choice. Khaki looks like the natural progression of color on this wood grain portion here.
Last show of the week. Yep, Jason is leaving in the morning for Nova. And he'll be gone the rest of this week through the weekend. We're also not going to be streaming Monday because of Labor Day, the Labor Day holiday. We all have the day off here. So we'll be back on Tuesday.
I don't know if having to fly back from DC technically counts as having the day off, but I'll allow it. We all have to fly back. I don't remember when we get in, though.
I mean, you, Jordan, and Christopher.
Yeah.
Not all of these people and me.
I don't remember when we get back in. I think we still have enough of the day to call it a day, but I don't remember.
Look.
I feel like our plane leaves at like 10, but we're East Coast, so that gives us some time back.
Looks like you get back at 8:30.
What's that?
Like it looks like you get back just before 9 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yeah. Yeah, 8:48 it says you arrive on Monday. 8:48 a.m.
When does my plane leave?
7 a.m.
What? Who booked that? That's horrible.
I mean, probably you.
Yeah, I know.
You will have the whole day to relax and take naps. Let the dog bug you.
And then I'm taking Tuesday off. Ha, ha, ha. I know. Don't sell your stocks. Not the end of the world. I'm proactively taking a day off for the first time in God knows how long. You guys will be without me until next Wednesday. But I think Jordan will be back.
far as I know, Jordan will be back. I know, T. Schmid. Monday and Tuesday off? You don't love us anymore.
Questionable.
You'd only sell if I quit? All right.
What's that?
Paint Looker said he'll only sell if I quit.
Yeah. That's probably a good time to judge that the world has had some pretty rough turns. Where's Jen? She gave up on us.
Yeah. I can't quit. I would have to sell the company. Well, what if I just abandoned it? What if I just walked away? Jason doing an all-day buddy cop movie marathon on Tuesday?
Nick Pye knows me so well.
Kimberly said, what kind of German class name books a flight that early?
Right? Volker.
Volker.
This guy.
What's the equivalent of that in English? Is it like Walter?
I don't know that it had one, which may be why I picked it.
Oh.
Or it might have just been what was left. I don't remember. Everybody already had like Klaus.
Yeah.
Gunther.
Yeah. Franz and Hans.
Hans and Franz. We are here to pump you up.
Arnold.
He was Austrian. Heck with that guy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they probably did. They probably do just have a Walter. That actually seems right.
When I told Tomas that was my German class name, he laughed.
Yeah. Sure, they think it's silly that we took on, all these American kids taking on European personas for an hour a day.
It sounds horrible when you say it like that. That takes all the luster out of it real quick.
I mean, that's basically what we did. We had to make French food. I made a souffle.
Yeah, we had to do the one of our class credit big things was we had to all do like a German potluck.
Yeah.
And
I feel like there was a pretty standard formula for schools.
Yeah. We had to do the dessert. My partner and I had to do the dessert. And we had to do German chocolate cake. And so I was all stoked. I was like, I love chocolate. But you had to do it authentic. And German chocolate cake, when done authentic, is horrible. It tastes like the bottom of a shoe. I don't even think there was any sugar in it.
It's just cocoa, which is
I had to we didn't have to take video because that was hard back then. Mm-hmm. But our parents had to sign off on us documenting that we did it this old world way. And so we had to peek the eggs, mm-hmm. the egg whites, into whip.
Probably with a whisk.
With a whisk.
Yeah.
Holy. I was young and fit. And by the end of that, I was ready to just die. Like peeking eggs with a whisk. People were sturdy back then. Yeah. That was no joke.
Well, in Germans are sturdy.
That was no joke.
Sturdy German.
Vake says, after living in Germany for 7 years, all you miss is having a... Wait a minute. What kind of show do you think this is? Having a donor. Is that a mistype or... I just found a show. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. It's called The Terror.
I don't know.
Is the show. I think it was originally on AMC. It might be on like Netflix or Prime now. I think it was called The Terror. it's an anthology. It has 2 seasons so far, and the first one is about a group of ships based on a true story, a group of ships that were lost in the Arctic. And it tells the story, like, makes it supernatural, like some monster.
People
The
know
polar
this.
one, yeah. Oh, okay. KG, is it good? It's good. Okay. Yeah, the first season was polar, and the second season was in the Japanese internment camps during World War II, where some Japanese demon stalks the people in the internment camps. So it's like psychological horror kind of stuff, like those thriller things. Yeah, they're all based on books.
First season gold, second season couldn't pass the third episode.
Oh, you couldn't get past the third episode. Okay. Yeah, the second season wasn't rated near as high, but they said the first season was worth looking at. So that's what I thought I might do on Tuesday. Is watch The Terror. I made a to-do on my to-do list.
Go. Source said Eons of Battle got really awesome results with Noosh.
Awesome.
Video. So.
Is that a recent video?
Yeah, someone talking about it earlier.
Yeah, they just mentioned. I just didn't know if it was done recently or if it was an old one we missed, because I haven't seen Eons use this stuff yet.
What's the date on that video? Week ago.
Cool. We will watch. We don't always get alerted for that stuff, right? A lot of these people make the videos and they don't, like, Eons is not.
Probably more often we don't know about them.
Yeah.
Ghost Center said German chocolate cake isn't actually German. It's named after a person named German.
Like the Caesar salad thing I said, it's not named after Julius Caesar. The guy's name was Caesar something. I'm like,
It's
don't
called,
put your
I
reality into my
money
fantasy.
On oil paints. Is this new product better?
What's that?
The video from Eons of Battle is called I wasted money on oil paints. Is this new product better?
Nice.
And it sounds like, spoiler alert, it is.
I mean, the whole reason we made it was not to replace oils. It was to make the thing that you get from oils more attainable for people that don't want to deal with oil paint. Our hobby is filled with a lot of artists who do not come at art from an artistic perspective. And when I say not from an artistic, like a trained classical art background, right? A lot of the big, like competition painters and things like that have got a art background. But for the bulk of people who come to it, they come to it because Space Marines are cool, or they see these cool people painting cool stuff and that looks like fun. It's not that they necessarily, a lot of people have told me, I probably heard a bajillion times, like, Jen, I can't even draw a stick figure, but paints her butt off and loves painting. That's great. And we have a lot more of those people. And so if we can show them cool effects that you don't have to have an understanding of how these various different paints work, because the amount of people I've talked to that are like, yeah, I didn't realize you couldn't use your oil painting brush for your acrylics and I ruined a model, right? This is stuff you shouldn't have to know. Just get it done. I always knew there was a way, and Noosh allows us to do that. So win-win. Those people that love oils will continue to love oils, and that's great.
Ghost Hunter may have posted the Eons video in the Discord, and now that you say that, and after reading the title of it, it does sound familiar. And apparently for him, Noosh does replace oil paint. Couldn't get the oil paints to work like he sees others do. Noosh replaces it. That's awesome. Jesus said, Jason, with Infinity N5 coming out, are you thinking of giving it another go?
No.
No.
Never again.
Ismail Camarillo, no, this one is from a My Mini Factory campaign from Dragon Trappers Lodge. And they, there is the paint set stuff that they did is through their campaign.
Yeah, Alan from Bicephalo Studios curated the colors out of our baseline of paints for how the two factions are painted up. And you can, for people that are new to Pro Acryl, it was a great way to introduce them, and they've got some cool models, and then got to use buy the colors.
Yep.
We do those things more to help those other people out. We assume that a lot of those people probably already have Pro Acryl colors, and already have the broad part of that range, but it's nice to be able to match the colors up to how the box art is painted.
But there are some very cool models in the.
Oh my god, they're amazing.
Dragon Trapper's Lodge. We do have, though, a few of the miniatures that are based on characters from Age of Angkor. Jordan's been painting them. He probably took it with him. Yes, it seems the Rumblebees are quite popular.
Rumblebees are
Seem like
amazing. That's what I'm painting
Fan
next.
favorites.
That's what I want to paint next, is a Rumblebee. I'm only going to paint one. I'm not going to paint a squad. I can't think of anything I'd want to use them for, but my god, the models want to have a whole army painted. Like, when you look at them, it's like, oh yeah, I could see this. I just wouldn't use them for anything. I'm not going to play, like, Age of Sigmar with them as a proxy, and not going to play the one-page rules thing, probably. Although Gabe and Christopher started playing the one-page rules fantasy and had some enjoyable games, so who knows?
Flies.
Nurgle flies, yeah, like the, oh my gosh, they'd be great for the dudes on the Nurgle flies, right? I've been playing Diablo 4. So my end of stream rant is going to be, is there a way to make this game harder? Because I didn't think I would have fun with it. And I'm having a lot of fun with Diablo. And I love the original Diablo. I spent countless hours of my youth, well, my younger years. I don't know if I'd say I was a youth, but I was younger than I am now, playing Diablo, and really enjoyed it. But man, this game is too easy. Playing Diablo 4, it's like I'm on the highest world level you can get before you defeat the whole campaign, but I have to play the whole campaign, and it's just too easy. 55 something. What? It's just kind of boring. Like, the campaign storyline is cool, but the game and getting there is really boring. It doesn't have a challenge. Yeah, it's always nightmare mode, but like, what a joke. Like, didn't it used to have the ability to have the campaign be hard? It's just frustrating. I'm like, I want it to be hard before I get to nightmare mode. Then nightmare mode is cool. I'm not saying that won't be cool too, but it's like, it makes it feel like there's no challenge. Like, the gear's basically free. You know, it's like, I know. I'm old man yells at clouds right now, but
Joe Gehring said the real game is after the campaign.
Yeah, I get that. I looked it up, and people were like, after the campaign and nightmare mode. I mean, it even says, like, nightmare mode you can unlock after you beat the campaign, blah, 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 blah.
Is this kind of like it gets really good after the 4th episode?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
That's the way it feels. It's like, but I got to spend all this time playing a game. I wish I was enjoying it now.
Like, why couldn't you make it good at the beginning? If it's so good then, why not start it off that way?
Because I don't feel like this is an accessibility thing. Like, they could hide behind, like, we wanted to make sure it was made for everybody. And I'm like, there's nobody that bad at video games, is there? Maybe there is.
Wad said the early game is pretty easy. D-Fresh said try Grim Dawn, then mod it to play Diablo 2 in Grim Dawn.
Well, that's the problem. I do play Grim Dawn, and Grim Dawn is hard as balls. Right? At the level I've got Grim Dawn knocked up to, it's really difficult, to the point to where I have to, like, you bang your head up against an area long enough that you want to take a break. and I want something in between that. But Diablo is literally just, you could just autopilot through it.
Teeny said that sounds like my kind of game. Life is hard. I don't need playtime to be hard too. That's why I watch bad television.
Well, trust me.
That's my version.
I play Elite Dangerous for when I want to just relax. I go mine rocks. I got a good mining build. I go sit in an asteroid field, mine rocks, make 100 million credits. Life is good. Ooh, that's starting to look pretty good.
It's 3:45.
What? I don't allow it. I can't stream late either because I got to go get ready to leave.
Yeah. Jesus said, have you guys thought of making mini busts? I picked up a 3D printed bust the size of a United model, and I really like it. Or texture trainers. They're not really busts, but they're kind of like the front of a bust.
Our texture trainers are amazing. Yeah. I built them. I designed each one to be, cool in its own right, but really with the idea that they would let people feel comfortable starting with busts who may have been on the fence or a little afraid of spending, like a lot of the busts cost like $7,500. So a texture trainer is $25. And lets you dig into that world of larger scale, practicing painting techniques to bring material to life and all the things that the larger scale painting allows you to do, which is super useful for even your gaming miniatures at gaming scale. Because the more you can get that brush control, the better you'll be as you start moving into any model. So Matt DiPietro painted the Crone for us. There's the box art version of the Crone. They're basically just flat back, got the Monument logo on the back. Chonky, unhollowed 3D prints, and have got some really good textures on them. Skin and, bat wings and demonic flesh and hair and all that on her. And then we've got the Hunter.
Panic Bomb, yep, Friday.
Right. Which gives you a more modern sci-fi look. You got some like gun, you can do in metallics, metal robotic arm, different denim and canvas pouches and things like that. And then the Warrior's around here someplace. Oh, here. And then the Warrior, which again is, a bunch of different materials that you can practice on: hair, flesh, did her up with a stone axe, metallics, enough armor and stuff, and a large enough area that it lets you really spend some time creating textures and enjoying the work rather than being so micro small on a normal model that you can't really see what you're doing or reap the benefit of it. So they're a lot of fun if you want to get into painting busts but not into, full figure, because the nice thing here is you're really focused on one direction. You don't have to paint the back.
And then the new one. Do you have the new one over there? The Salamander?
Oh, and the Salamander. The new one that'll be available at Nova.
Friday.
The Nova Salamander. I'll take this one. I'll be painting on him while I'm there. Working on the flames and doing some fun stuff there. He will be... technically, people are getting him today, I think, if you're at Nova. But he'll be available on the store Friday.
Yes. Oh, and Spatsnat said for a mini bust, you could just not glue the legs on a Space Marine.
When the next season starts with the expansion on October 8th, they're revamping the leveling progression. Sounds like they're flattening it to the max level being 60. There's supposed to be a dev stream to go over the detail. We're talking about Diablo. It just feels like the story's good-ish. It's very Diablo, so it's exactly what I expect from that game. The gameplay's good. The skill tree's interesting. The ability to assign different traits to different weapons, like take a trait off and put the trait you want on there, is cool. So it adds to the gymming customization really nicely. So there's a lot of parts of it I like, which is why I really wish it was harder and more interesting to play. I haven't had a single boss in the storyline that even lasted long enough for me to tell what was going on in the story. It feels like I need to set challenges in the game in order to make it harder. Don't play with any weapons. Just punch him. It's just take off half of your armor set. I died once, and it's because I sneezed. I can't make this up. I sneezed when I was in the middle of a fight with some demon or whatever, and he threw a circle of like boiling goo on the floor underneath me, and I sneezed, and I had to cover my sneeze and wipe my nose, and I died because
No.
my character was sitting in the middle of the boiling goo and took enough damage to die. So I've died once through the whole thing, and it was because I sneezed.
Aw.
The rest of the game doesn't even... I don't even do anything with my character. I just run around and open chest, and everything dies, because I have, like, thorns on my character, so every time something hits me, it takes enough damage to where it just dies.
Jade said just play in someone else's game. It gets interesting, and it'll scale up the difficulty.
Oh, if you have multiple characters? I mean, I do the world events, where there's, like, 6 of us there or something, right? World bosses and stuff, and they just melt. Again, I just kind of feel like it's under-tuned for the leveling part to be accessible to people, which, you know, I can't gripe about it. If it makes it fun for people to play because they get their power fantasies done, then great, but it makes it less fun to play the game overall. It just isn't difficult. And I remember playing, like, Path of Exile. I died all the time. And that kept you going. Like, oh, I gotta figure out how to get past it. I gotta get my build to work better. Now I haven't even paid attention to my build. If it says it has more armor, I wear it. And I'm doing that all the way to level 55. And the gear just doesn't really seem to make a difference, so it's a shame. But I love the idea of it. It is still fun to, like, find the uniques. They've got an event going on right now where a lot of the gold goblins are running around. And if you kill one, I don't know, it's like a fountain of surprise. You kill one, and, like, you just get so much equipment, it fills up the whole screen. It was never like that, but it's some special event they're running until the 3rd of September. And I've already gotten 2 uniques from that are pretty good, but...
You never know, Game Delay, what you're going to get in a Monument Hobbies stream.
Yeah, you can find busts that are not super big. You know, this guy is Spira Mirabalis. I don't remember what this company is called. I like the dwarf. He's fun, and he's not super big.
You know, and we still have some of the Mindwork miniatures on our website that would work, probably.
Spira Mirabilis. That's a hard word for me to say. I don't know why. One of the things your boss pointed out is that we are generally better at video games now. I mean, I don't know if that's true. Maybe.
Well, the games have gotten more advanced.
Yeah. But, like, if I go play... Some games are just brutally hard, and not just because they're super overtuned, but because they've made the fights to where you have to, you know, really pay attention, and they feel good still. They don't feel like, oh, they just made this hard for the sake of it being hard, you know?
Maybe that's in comparison to, like, the old games. So, like, maybe a kid now would go to, like, an old video game and just, like, it would be nothing because the game.
No, I don't think you could give a kid, like, Defender or Pac-Man and have them win.
No.
I think it's a total different skill set now, which is an interesting way to look at it, because back then it was very vector and repeatable patterns.
Yeah.
All of those games were repeatable patterns because they weren't random. There was, like, you knew, like, there were games where people could play blindfolded Pac-Man and win all the time because they knew exactly how long to go left and right and left and right because it was repeatable all the time.
So maybe then it's the other way around, that if someone who was, like, really great at the old games but hasn't played for a while wouldn't be able to necessarily
It's interesting to think about. Yeah, I don't know. I just know that Diablo used to be harder. I used to die a lot in Diablo before I was through the campaign, and now it's not fun. You kids think Dark Souls is hard. None of you played the Disney game on NES. Oh man, some of those games were impossible just because the controls and the input lag was so horrible. You remember playing Dragon's Lair? The one that was on Laserdisc? You remember that at the arcade? It was like a Disney...
Like you're asking me.
Well, I mean, I thought maybe you would have seen it at least. It was amazing for its time because it was a cartoon. It was a Don Bluth cartoon that he had done, and it played off of Laserdisc to where it actually played cartoon scenes, and it registered your input at specific times. Like when the cartoon was running, it looked like he needed to jump. If you didn't hit the stick in the right direction, it would switch to a cartoon track that showed him dying.
Huh.
And so you had to jump. It was very, very unique at the time.
games,
but I couldn't play that game to save my life.
Yeah, the games I remember are like obviously Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Asteroids, Space Invaders. Like
and even those were super hard.
The old. Yeah.
Like Space Invaders, I remember Galaga getting so fast that I couldn't even see the stuff on the screen. I was like, nah, forget it.
Yeah.
I got a lot out of that quarter. I will see it in heaven.
Yeah.
You know? But Dragon's Lair was crazy. It was too hard for me. But then I watched people beat the game. But again, it was like they could have played it blindfolded. They would count 1, 2, 3, 4, left, 1, 2, up, 1, 2, back, and because the timing was always the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the old game, I would think, Joe Gehrig, you're probably right on that one, right? That the old games didn't really have the controls figured out. Because how many times did you play Frogger and the input lag on the joystick was what got you killed? Because it was so slow. It was like, and it would go goink, and then goink, and you're having to watch the logs and stuff on the screen. You're like, no! But that was part of what we thought video games was cool, because you didn't have anything to compare it to. So that's just the way they worked. It was so frustrating. I used a bent spoon on track and field because you had to press the two buttons alternate because you were running, and they represented your feet. And so you wouldn't run with hitting both buttons at the same time. You can't do that. So you'd have to alternate them. So you'd put your finger in the middle and bend a spoon or a knife, and you'd press down on one of them and then just tap the other one as fast as you could because the leverage would tap the other button for you automatically. And we'd get kicked out of the arcade for breaking the...
cheating.
We'd get kicked out for cheating because we'd get the high score every time because we could run faster than robots. It was hilarious. You don't see people trying to reinvent an FPS control scheme? Yeah, exactly. Bad programming and slow hardware was what made video games. Well, if you watch some of the people, and I knew people from the video game industry back in the day that had been there for a long time, and they had to develop the engine based around the limitations of the technology. So they were really programming to what the tech could do, which makes sense, right? That's all you can do. So they would have things that were way harder than they needed to be because there was no way to get around the tech making it hard. If you wanted to make a game like that, then you just had to get over it. Bullet Heart, that's an analog of Bullet Hell video games? Oh, that's interesting. I don't even know how they do that. Pixel Perfect or die. Yeah. So anyway, back to Diablo. It's not fun because it's not hard enough. It's still fun. I still play it every night because the story's been good, but I just power through it. The dungeons I stopped going into because I was like, I would go into the little dungeons they have like out in the world. You'd reach a thing and you'd go down and you'd go through the caves and you'd fight and there'd be like a boss or something. You'd fight it and then I'd be looking for the next room and I'm like, oh, that was it? Because it just died. It just melted and went away. And I was like, oh, that was just like a mini boss on the way. And it wasn't. That was the whole purpose of the dungeon because it was a dungeon cleared. And I'm like, what? So that just happens too much. I'm like, It's funny because a lot of times the antagonist in Diablo will have a voiceover when they pop up, right? Because the storyline is you find somebody and right before they die, they burst out and they've a demon host. And now there's a big demon you got to fight. And so they're saying all the time and their voice changes. They've spent all this time doing this great voiceover. And I'm sitting there, the thing's dead and the voiceover is still going about how he's going to kill you. But he's dead and you're picking up the gear. So it's just way too easy. Yeah, it's just busy work. But it kind of feels like you have to do them. Punisher, Necromancer. I always go with summons if I can in those games. But I feel like it may be that like Necromancer I've been reading is like way overtuned. So either nerf Necromancers or make the game harder. Because it's too easy. I got all the aspects that allow me to have more skeletal mages and skeletal warriors and all the things that make my what do you call it? Not ogre, golem. Get his ability to go off pretty much constantly. And yeah, and then I just put those aspects on all my gear. And I walk around opening up chests. I have not swung my weapon in days, except to open chests. That's it. I just walk around. I don't ever take any damage. I'm like, Dungeons. Yeah, I haven't gotten on the Paragon board. I'm only level 55, so I haven't gotten on the Paragon board to the point where you get to put. I'm like one step away from being able to unlock the first glyph. I have a bunch of glyphs, but I don't have the ability to use them yet. So you ramped up difficulty in Diablo to the highest possible. Wasn't getting certain unlocks in the season pass because you had to finish stuff on the difficulty level below where you were. What do you mean you ramped up difficulty? Like in Diablo 4, there's only 4 choices, right? I started at world level 2. And then I think world level 3 or whatever's next is Nightmare. And then after that, I don't know what it is. There's another one after that. When you realized you had to reduce difficulty to get to higher difficulty, you decided you were done. Oh. I don't understand. You would have already had to finish the game, right? Because you can't get to the higher difficulty without finishing the campaign, can you? Oh, Necromancers got decently nerfed this season? Well, they didn't nerf them enough. There are special dungeons that unlock Nightmare Tiers 3 and 4. Oh, so you can go do that and unlock them and start playing that before you were really supposed to. Is that what you're saying? But you have to beat the game to get to. That's what I thought. I thought you had to beat the campaign to get to any of that. Yeah. I don't know. I just want it to be harder. Capstone dungeons. Gotcha. Gotcha. But you got to beat the game. Well, if you've already beaten the game, then why do you have to go back to earlier difficulties to get further? I don't understand. But I love how Wad is like, yeah, Necromancers were broken last season. I just started playing like 3 days ago, 4 days ago, this weekend. So I like through it. I don't like barbarians and druids, and I don't remember what else was wizard, and I don't remember what else is there. None of the classes looked interesting to me at all. But I like summons thing. The druid didn't seem like it had summons. Like in some games, druids allow you to have animals and summons. I don't know if this one does. I like having summons. But from what I've been looking at, like when I play world bosses and you see like the barbarians, they kill things quicker than I do, or all my minions and stuff. So I don't know. It just seems like the game is undertuned. Just gonna be honest. It's undertuned. I get it. Like I said, make it accessible. Make it fun for anybody involved, but I think you could have put another level or let us do Nightmare, straight out or something. I'm just bitching. I want so badly for games and movies to be fun, and I don't find them fun. I think I'm just old and cantankerous. It's me, not you. Yeah, after playing the game for, I don't know, an hour maybe, and leveling up a whole bunch, like you just level up so much so quick in the game. And I was looking at the skill tree, not spending my skill points initially, because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And I was looking down the skill tree and finding other things, and I was like, this doesn't sound like fun. Blood didn't sound fun. Bone didn't sound fun. Nothing in the Necromancer skill tree sounded fun to me as far as like, active spells. And so I had picked my first basic one was, I don't know, Shadow, do they call it? Thresher or something like that. And so I've just stuck with that. I'm just doing the darkness or shadow spells or whatever. And I only have one active thing that I do, because I haven't seen a need to put any of the rest of them on my skill bar. So I was trying to detune myself to make the game harder by having it be that I only have one active skill. So I only have my left button skill. That's it. And it's still stupid.
Ready to wrap up?
Yeah, is it 4? Oh,
Past 4.
yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta put stuff together. I gotta put my minis in a bag. I gotta pack. I gotta take all the stuff Jordan didn't take. You didn't even finish Elden Ring DLC. You just got bored. You're just getting you're just getting bored. The Elden Ring DLC was good on the first playthrough for me and then I beat it, and then I went back to try to play it on my other character, and it was too soon. I can't really do that very well because I'm like, yeah, I've already done this, so I haven't played it. Being a live service game, everything is balanced around the people skipping the campaign and playing the current season. Yeah. Panic Bomb, thank you so much. 4,677 Glazers in the Discord. That sounds horrible. Everybody, check out those links that Jen has put in chat. The Discord, a great place to hang out. As Ghost Hunter says, there's over 4,000, well, closing in on 5,000 amazing artists just like you. If you ever have questions like we answered today with the wash question and the paint drying, those are always available to be asked, and photos and interaction with the Monument team on the Discord, as well as the amazing community. Like I said, when you got nearly 5,000 artists, there's always somebody that's got a better answer than we do and has some creative influence and things like that for inspiration all over that place, as well as places to look at other people's cute pets and what they had for dinner. So that's always good too. So join the Discord. And then monumenthobbies.com, the store where you can buy all of the cool Poro Curl products you've seen us using, all the paints and brushes and things like that. People claim nerds don't wash. We totally wash. I washed a lot today, dude.
Yeah, a lot of
so much
today.
wash happening here today that I can't even find the model we washed. Oh, this guy. Yeah. So go pick yourself up some products next time you need some hobby stuff. If you're in the Washington, D.C. area over the weekend, it is Nova Open. We will not be streaming tomorrow or Friday because Jordan and Christopher are already there. I fly out in the morning, and we'll be there starting tomorrow evening. Come join us if you're in the area. It's a great show. The Capitol Palette, amazing painting competition. It is an open style painting competition, so if you meet the rubric, you get a prize. It's not a who's top 3 and nobody else gets anything. If you get in there and you meet what was the specifications for getting a bronze medal, you get a bronze medal, period. So tons of winners, tons of feedback, great place to go if you're not able to go this year and you're thinking about painting and getting more serious about it. Great thing to plan for every level, from beginner, novice, all the way up to rarefied air, golden demon slaying sword winning artists are there, and great models to look at. We'd love to see you. What else? Stick around. We do normally stream Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Standard. We will be back here next Tuesday. So you'll be without us, and we'll be without you for 3 days. But enjoy your Labor Day weekend if you're in the States. Stick around. We're going to find somebody to raid. Show love over in the channel there. The follow is free and get spirits high. So thank you so much. We will see you on the flip side. Adios, gang.
Bye.